Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have another Star Wars ranking video. This time I am ranking Phase 2 of the High Republic books. I did a ranking for Phase 1, the novels, and the adult, middle grade, and young adult, and today I have a ranking of the Phase 2 adult, young adult, and middle grade novels. And then once I read Phase 3, I'll rank Phase 3, and then I'll rank all the books. That should be a big fun video, all the High Republic stories. I am including the manga today since it was just a single manga and there weren't as many Phase 2 books, so I will be including that. But so I have 8 books total: 2 middle grade, 2 young adults, 1 manga, and then 3 adult novels. So that's the list of what I have to talk about. I'll give a brief thoughts on what I thought of the book and why it ranks where it does. And so to begin, my number 8, bottom of the list, is the only book I thought was bad, which was The Quest for Planet X. I thought, Tessa Gratton showed such potential with the first book she did, the young adult book, which I'll talk about in a minute. But when I read this book, it was overall very disappointing. None of the plot had really meaning to the overarching story. The characters did not change in ways I liked. In fact, several of them felt like they felt stagnant or went backwards from the other middle grade novel. And then also, it just wasn't a. It was supposed to be a fun little romp with kids, but it just didn't deliver the fun properly. It felt like a why do we need to do this type book. So I didn't like this one. Coming in at number 7 is a book I did enjoy, and that is Quest for the Hidden City. I sadly don't think that this middle grade book is as good as like A Test of Courage, or what I think is the best Star Wars middle grade book for the canon so far, which is Mission to Disaster, both of which by Justina Ireland. This book is just entertaining, and it just provides a fun story. And I think it handles 2 of the 3 characters from this book are in this book, and I think they're handled better here. I think that the story is engaging. I think that the action is great. I think that the characters are good. I think that everything about this book works. These books feel unnecessary. Had they taken these 2 books out and done the High Republic as only adult and young adult, this would have been fine. So that's the problem, is when these books feel that unnecessary. It's just disappointing that they feel that way. Next, book 6 on the list is the biggest book in terms of page count, and that is Path of Vengeance by Cavan Scott. This is a big book, for sure the largest, one of the largest High Republic young adult novel. But let me check the page count real quick. It is actually the second longest page count young adult novel for Star Wars. The longest still belongs to Lost Stars, which I believe is like 550 pages. This one's like 511. This book wraps up the High Republic Phase 2. You have the first portion of Phase 2, which started with Path of Deceit, and then this one takes those characters with Path of Vengeance and finishes it out. It bookends. And really, when you put the books in release order, it actually, if you take out the manga, put the books in release order, it actually looks like a big bookend. You had young adult, middle grade, adult, middle grade, young adult. So it was a nice bookend. But I thought that this book, it was entertaining, but it just didn't have enough that the other books had, and it was just such a sad book overall that it just couldn't compare to the others. That's number 6. So my number 5 book is the manga Edge of Balance, which I really enjoyed. I thought that the first 2 manga in the High Republic, for the part of Phase 1, really felt like you weren't getting your bang for your buck with your story. And I still feel that they're charging too much for these books. However, I think that with this book, you're getting a great story, a complex story. This is like a flashback, so you get the story in the time of Phase 1, and then you flash back to Phase 2 for a long time, and then it jumps back up to Phase 1 time. And I really enjoyed that. I like the complexity of the story. I like the characters in this. I did not like the artwork. The artwork was not good in this book, but the artwork was good in the other two High Republic manga, which I think says more about the artist than the style, because they tried to keep the same style. It just didn't work. But I enjoyed the story. I thought the villain was great. The villain in this book is terrifyingly great. And I think that the droid in this book is just the sweetest. Oh, the sweetest droid. So I really liked this one as my number 5. My number 4 is actually my favorite young adult book in the High Republic, and that's Path of Deceit by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. What makes this book so great is that it actually tells a really engaging story. It's really deep. It's easy to follow. The characters are really interesting. It sets up, this is the beginning of the High Republic Phase 2, and really, if you're looking at the timeline, this is the first High Republic story, and it really sets things up for the world. You understand the path of the open hand. And really, while the adult books follow the Jedi and the other characters, the young adult books, these two really follow the path of the open hand. Their characters, specifically the two Roe cousins, and then of course the mother is very much involved. And then there is a Jedi main character in this book. A Jedi Padawan or apprentice who's kind of smitten with one of the Rose sisters. But what makes this book stand out is the other one was so gloomy, and this one, while it has some dark moments, particularly near the ending, the ending of this book is really dark. But what made it so great was that it was a pretty fun book, and it did a great job of establishing everything, which I really liked. So next I have, going into my number 3, so that was my number 4, this is my number 3, and that would be The Battle of Jeddah. This is the script by George Mann. I think it is much superior to Mann's middle grade book. This is a pretty long book. I want to check the page count. It's like 485 pages, but it's a super quick read because it's a script. It's a super quick read. And this book tells the story of the Battle of Jeddah. It's pancaked right in between Convergence and Cataclysm. While Convergence and Cataclysm are the adult novels, there's more story, they're bigger, they're like that type of thing. This really is Act 2 of 3. This is the middle storyline. And it introduces new characters while also using the old characters a little bit, but it's so entertaining. The fun of the battle, reading the chaos of the battle, reading how you're like, all right, we got the negotiations, everything's going. Oh no, it's about to go horribly wrong. And it's just a delightful read. So I thought this book was excellent, and I thought the characters were excellent too. Then my number 2, this was an interesting back and forth I had. I would give number 2 to Convergence by Zoraida Cordova. This is the first adult novel that really, it's like, this does the wind up. This is the pitch. This is the beginning of the storyline, and then Cataclysm ends it. But this is there's a fly in here for some reason. This is a great book that introduces the son of the Chancellor. It introduces a young Jedi. It introduces the 2 planets of Irem and Ernroch, and it introduces the conflict of those planets. It introduces these kind of literally star-crossed lovers. These well, they're not really star-crossed lovers. These 2 characters who are heirs to the throne of each planet, and they each decide to get married so that they can protect. So they can bring peace to their planets. I thought that was a delightful storyline. And then, of course, nobody wants that to happen because war profiteers want war, and there are other things with the path of the open hand going on, and so I thought this was a delightful book. However, you still didn't understand the whole plan for everything, which is why this book I don't think is as great. But the number one best book in the High Republic Phase 2 is Cataclysm by Lydia Kang. This book is the payoff. This is the endgame, even though technically Path of Vengeance ends, is the final book in the timeline ends of the storyline. This is the big epic showdown. This is the action is at its biggest, the adventure is at its biggest, the characters experience, especially the good guy characters, the Jedi characters, the heroes, they experience their darkest trials and their greatest triumphs during this book. It was such a fun blast to read, and it's so sad that it's over. And this book also does a good job of preparing us for Phase 3, as did Path of the Vengeance. But I mean, everything about this book, I think, was done to near perfection. I still think that the Phase 1 adult novels are better, but this is as good as you could get with the story that they had for Phase 2. And I feel like Phase 2 was a little bit more cohesive between the adult and young adult, but it wasn't more cohesive with middle grade. Whereas the Phase 1, I thought the adult was cohesive with some of the middle grade, but it was not cohesive with the young adult properly. So that's just a weird thing that Phase 1 had. So that is my ranking of all 8 books in the High Republic Phase 2. There's technically a final project coming out. I think it's a graphic novel, but we haven't gotten confirmation. But I don't think it's a novel, so I'm not including that in the ranking. And I know I included a manga, but that's a one-time thing. So if you've read the High Republic Phase 2 books, how would you rank them? Do you disagree? Agree? Did you love one of the books I hated or disliked? Or did you dislike one of the books I loved? Let me know all those thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching. No!